How's everybody doing tonight? I am wore out. I think I'm trying to give up pop and I haven't had any caffeine today. So PBO is struggling, but he's always struggled, team, man. Give me one in the chat if you can hear me. Shout out to my man Ty. Shout out to my man Jeffrey Johnson. Shout out to GRC Mafia. So the Trusted Information Security Assessment Exchange, you see it right there from automotive and car solutions, large car manufacturers. If you're doing parts for cars, especially if you're in Europe, it's a ISO 270001. Uh, it's a branch off of that once again for automotive security. Just something I've never quite heard of, to be honest. So I wanted to do a little research on it. Shout out to my man Vince for giving me the one. Appreciate it. So we're just gonna hit it at the top level. Once again, most people know I have a YouTube channel, which most of you are on. In there is a compliance playlist. So in there, I try to have um, the most common, I guess, compliance frameworks in there. CMC, course NIST, 800, CSF, 171, CMMC. I don't think I did an ISO video, so I think that might be my next video. I've been sticking my toe a little bit in ISO. Shout out to my man Shango for joining. So we're just going to hit on this. Once again, we reached out. We had a great conversation. We were talking about federal compliance, and they brought up this for cars. I was like, I'm not aware of that one. So you see it right there, IT, corporate security, material management, research and development, HR, production, quality, legal compliance, data privacy, and facility management. Of course, most of all that I can map to NIST 853, right? So that would be the crossover. Once again, just trying to touch at a high level for car manufacturers and automobile compliance. Once again, I wasn't aware of this particular one, and I think somebody says there's like 600 compliances out there, some huge number. So I'm not going to know them all. So it was developed by the German Association of Automotive Industry, VITA, and is an information security assessment catalog of requirements based on ISO, IEC 27001. NX Association acts as the governance organization within uh, TISAX. It approves audit providers and monitors the quality of implementation as well as the assessment results. So once again, they're audit providers, just like the 3PLs and FedRAMP, focus on security within the automotive industry supply chain. Compliance is mandated by German automotive original equipment manufacturers, the OEMs. Satisfies in part Section 6123 of contingency planning and the IATF. Once again, it's ISO 27001. I better not call it 001. I don't want my man to get me. So that's where it comes from. Once again, the automotive, specifically German. So we're going to hit on those key points. Let's see if there's any questions in the chat. The key features, industry-specific focus. It addresses the unique information security requirements of automotive industry, including protection of prototype compliance with data protection, regulations similar to GDPR, mutual recognition, assessment results are shared among the participants via a centralized platform, reducing the needs for multiple audits and foster trust among partners. The assessment levels, we were looking at that in our CISSP study group. AL1, self-assessment without external validation. AL2, assessment with external auditors based on documentation reviews. AL3, comprehensive on-site assessment by an external auditors. So what level you're at. So if you're new or you're trying to get work, you can tell people you can help them with level one, AL1. Most companies are going to do a self-assessment to see where they're at. Then once they think they're passed, and they'll go to level two, assuming submit by external auditor. But then you would go to the on-site assessment by an external auditor. Once again, they're approved vendors, similar to the FedRAMP 3 PAOs, third-party assessments. So once again, you get a TISAX because you're going to get certified to do that type of work. Once again, for the automotive industry. So preparations, understand the requirements and establish an information security management system, ISM, aligned with the ISA catalog. Register organization in the official portal, managed by Enix Association. Like with anything, you got to scope the definition, define the scope of assessment, including the specific objects that desired assessment level. Audit provider assessment, choosing a credit audit provider to conduct the assessment. Once again, similar to the 3PL and FedRAMP. Undergo the assessment, which may include document reviews, interviews, on-site evaluation, and depending on the assessment level, right? So those are the links where I actually got the documentation from. So I just left those in there. What's the benefits? Once again, I think it's similar to, it is similar to ISO, right? That's where they branched it out from. Similar to NIST CSF, similar to PCI, right? So the benefits of you getting certified, it demonstrates a commitment to information security fostered by the OEMs. Efficiencies, reduce the need for multiple assessments by providing standardized certification. Compliance help organization meet regulatory requirements related to data protection and information security. So the last one's pretty big because a lot of companies put out RFPs and RFIs for automotive companies. If you're doing work, you're creating tires, putting cars together in a European. So once again, they're going to make sure you have this regulation from security. Like if you're in a federal system, they make sure you NIST 800 or FedRAMP or FISMA, right? So once again, this is the automobile, especially in Europe, certification that they want companies to get. Once again, it's rare. Before I've talked to somebody, I've never heard of that. Once again, I don't know every compliance out there. So let's keep rolling. Let's say PBO dying today, barely making it, but we're going to keep rolling. Let's see. Boop, boop. Assessment for subsets, and this is with anything. Assessment preparations. You have to prepare for the assessment. To the extent depends on the maturity level. We looked at the different maturity levels. Your preparation has to be based on the ISA catalog. B, audit provider selections. You have to choose one of the audit providers. Your audit provider will conduct the assessment based on the assessment scope that matches your partner's requirements. The assessment process will consist of initial audit at minimum. If your company does not pass assessment right away, this assessment process may require additional steps, which is not unusual. You're going to have findings, compensating controls, stuff you might not pass. Once your company passes assessment, your audit provider will provide you with this official TISAX assessment report. Your assessment report would also have received TX labels. So once again, this is standard, similar PCI. Once again, FISMA. A lot of certifications have these basic steps in them. I'll put that in our legal foundation. You need to sign a contract. The first contract it enters between you and your NX associate. General terms and conditions. Shout out to Chris. We were going over terms and conditions today, and I think yesterday. Second, the contracts between you and the TISAX audit partners. For registration, you will look at the first contract only. The participants govern our mutual relationship and your relationship with the TISAX participants. They define the rights and duties for all of us, besides the usual clauses found in most contracts. All the participants are subject to the same rules. You can expect appropriate protection of your TS assessment results by your partner in his role as a passive participant. So that's cool. Once again, I think terms and conditions are something hidden that I think we need to pay more attention to. Once again, shout out to the study GRC. Chris was hitting terms and conditions. That's something I think I don't know, I might go over there Saturday and lunch and learn. I got to get some some energy up. Once again, just kind of walking through the TISAX, the automobile assessment, and what that would look like. The scope, you always got to scope it out. In simple terms, every part of your company that handles your partner's confidential information is part of the assessment scope. You could consider a major element of the audit provider task description. It dictates what the audit providers need to access. Right? So you need to make sure wherever that data goes or those parts for the automotive that you need to keep track of, you need to keep your scope tight as possible. You don't want the auditors just looking at everything in your network. That's going to drive the cost up. So a lot of times we try to keep all that into a certain part of the network, certain services, certain databases, certain web service. Keep that tight and control. Similar to PCI, we try to keep it on a few subnets so we can once again keep our scope down and our access tight. The assessment result would only fulfill your partner's requirements if it's respective of the assessment scope, covers all parts of your companies that handles your partner's information. That's it at the bottom, partner's information. A lot of people struggle with tracking data through their infrastructure network, especially if they're hybrid. But you need to be able to scope that, right? And we're gonna do some diagrams of that, some infrastructure diagrams, and precisely define assessment scope and essential prerequisite for meaning cost calculation, once again, by your TSAC audit provider. So that's one thing you want to keep your scope small, your assessment small, and what you spend on them small. And two, being able to identify where are your partner's information at the end your company that handle the partner's information. So if you're getting car parts, vendors, putting together different parts of a car, once again, those will be part of the scope. And two is the manufacturer, you might be a sub for them. So once again, they got to keep track of you and you got to keep track of your scope to give it up to your prime, right? Because a lot of times they're going to be getting audited, but part of their audit is third-party assessments for the smaller companies to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. Favorite one, especially from this, is scope tailoring. You don't skate. The question is whether you have one scope or several scopes is the only you can answer. So kind of walks you through it. All locations that will need to an assessment in the future. Do you need assessment for more than one location? Separate the locations from each other. Start again for each location. Do you have sufficient time for preparation? Do all locations share a central ISM, responsibilities, infrastructure, and policies? So hopefully, even if we have divisions in different locations, we have corporate policies, corporate procedures, and all the divisions reference those corporate policies. Do all sites share the same assessment objectives, protection of prototype vehicles, or information with very high protection in the registry scope? So once again, just scoping it out. A lot of times, those are global companies. So where is that data or material flowing through, and can you keep track of it? And a lot of times, global companies, you might have a North American division, a Canada division, a Germany division. So once again, are those separate policies? Or are you rolling them up to a corporate policies? So that's some things from a org you have to figure out how you want that to run in your organization. So shout out to Jupiter for joining me. I dropped the link if anybody want to come up. Like I said, I think this is going to be short. Something I just was kind of digging into. It's similar, I think, to the other compliances. I just kind of want to have a general understanding of it. Like I said, how to great conversation. So I want to dig a little deeper into the TISAX for car car compliance. Here's some of the things at different assessment levels. We was talking about the AL2, L3, and the different information high, information very high, confidential. So that's one thing I always talk about is what's the classification of data you're moving through? Because that's really going to tell you what you're assessing and how to assess it. Then you got prototype for parts, vehicles, tests. So they kind of lay out a pre-assessment. And I'll put a link into the document. So in there, it just kind of breaks everything down. So prototypes, parts, and vehicles are AL3. Test vehicles and events are AL2. So once again, I'll let you know what type of security and assessment you need to be able to do. Data was 2. Special data is AL3. If you have self-driving cars or something with a little more security, right? If the car is tracking your location, that's going to be special data. Special data. So once again, they kind of mapped it out of what level you should be at their assessment. Assessment level 1, we were just looking at that. Assessment are mainly for internal purposes, for self-assessment. And assessment level 1 is auditor's checks for the existence of completed self-assessment. He does not assess the contents of the assessment. He does not require further evidence. Results of the assessment level 1s have a low trust level and are thus not used in a TISAC, but of course possible that your partner may request such a self-assessment. So once again, level 1 is, do you do a self-assessment? Do you have artifacts detailing that you do a level 1? Once again, most companies are going to ask some for a little higher, but once again, this is really to get you started on that particular assessment. 2, the auditor does a plausibility check on your self-assessment for all your location within assessment scope. He support this checking evidence and conducting an interview with persons in charge of information security. The audit provider does an internal via web conference at your request. You can conduct the interview in person. If you have evidence you don't want to send to the auditors, by fault, you can set an on-site inspection. This way, the audit providers can still check your for your eyes-only evidence. So a lot of times we call that digital escorting. We can actually log in on our monitor and let them actually take over our keyboard and we watch them. So a lot of times we do a lot of digital escorting. When I was with the state, Booz Allen wanted to come on site, which was I thought was a little different, but they came on. So depends once again on how your auditor wants to handle it. A lot of times if they come on site, your bill is going to be a little higher too. Sometimes they're going to pass that travel on to you. So I think that's why digital escorting means, they look over your shoulder. They can actually take over your keyboard. But anytime they do that, we're actually recording that whole interaction. AL level 3. In assessment level 3, the auditor provider does a comprehensive verification of your company's compliance with applicable requirements. The auditor uses your self-assessment and submitted documentation to prepare for the assessment. But in contrast, level 2, the auditor will verify everything, examine documents and evidence, conduct planned interviews with the process owners, observe local conditions, observe the execution of the process, conduct unplanned interviews with process participants. So you as an internal auditor or self-assessment, you need to examine all your documents and you need to have interviews with your tech people, your DBAs, your cloud engineers, because they're going to interview them. Do they know where the incident response playbook is? Do they where their security awareness records? So you really have to go through and act like you're their level 3 and do an internal assessment. So that's kind of one of my job functions. Used to be one of my job functions is doing those internal assessments for companies. A lot of times too, that's a nice way to get side work before they pay the big 3PL come out, because they probably charging $200 or $300 an hour. You could come on and do a partial assessment their organization, policies and procedures, plans, checklists. Once again, and kind of walk through with their organization. A lot of times, people try to volunteer that so they can get some real live work. So there was a table in there, self-assessments. It tells you what yes compared on level one, two, and three. On-site inspection at the request. Level three is yes, so via web conference, in person. Looks like level three they want to be in person, right? Level two you can do a web conference. Um, Some things that are being a report: assessment of related information, company name, assessment scope, scope ID, assessment ID. I got a spreadsheet where they break some of that down. We'll look at that real quick. Summarize the reports, management summary, assessment results, conform, minor non-conform, major non-conform, number of findings, abstract categorization, summary of the assessment results per chapter. Example 9, access controls. Maturity level, it's a result type, show you the maturity level of each requirement. Detailed assessment results. So those are the things you're going to be looking for from your auditors to make that happen. Overview from your assessment scope: incomplete, awaiting your order, approval, payment, register, active, and expire. So we were talking about some of the assessment status. Those are some of the status that'll be in your report. Everybody knows I'm an AWS guy, so some of AWS regions are has TISAX certifications. All below regions are assessed for TISAX information for very high protection. Needs AL3 label with zero nonconformities for the control domains. In the US, it's in US East. Wow, it's not even the US. Okay, US West Oregon. So those are the data centers. US East North Virginia and Ohio, US West Oregon. So those are the four locations in AWS that are TISAX certified. This is what I thought was weird about AWS. All AWS service deployed in the assessed regions are considered certified providers of that region is successfully assessed. So if you're one of those three regions, all your services are automatically guaranteed, which I thought was a little a little different. Usually, if it's FedRAMP, I still make sure each services are FedRAMP. All right, because some of the services could be in a FedRAMP data center, but they support other services. Meaning, if they're not a primary services, you got to do additional things to make sure they're FedRAMP compliant or TISAX compliant. So that once again it was a little different. Where those regions, everything in there is successfully assessed to be able to do that type of work. Once again, I thought that was a little different. Oh, so that's really all I had. It was something short. And at the top, I think I'm gonna do another video on this. So as your TSAX data comes through your internet and goes through your EC2s and your private subnet, we will highlight where that data would be touching so we could figure out what part of our infrastructure is in scope. All right, so I think I might do a presentation on how you scope and tracks data through your cloud infrastructure, your hybrid infrastructure. So you know what's in scope, be it PCI, FISMA, FedRAMP, SOC 2, Type 2. You got to be able to trace your data through your infrastructure and highlight it. So I think that's something that should be done. So drop any questions. If it's FedRAMP, does it meet TSAT? No, because in that document, which I thought was kind of weird, uh, the reason I said no is I think there's a couple. I thought there was a couple more data centers that are FedRAMP that's not on this list, so that's the reason I said no. Hmm. There's a couple more data centers that are FedRAMP that's not on this list. So that's what made me say that. Let me bring up their spreadsheet real quick. So I need to Google that to check, but I'm pretty sure there's a couple more data centers that are FedRAMP that aren't on the list. Maybe they need to update that list, but so once again, I thought that was a little different. I appreciate that, Ty. Please hit that like button. Let's look at. Huh. Hmm. Let me make that a little bigger. I hope. Oh, yeah, there it is down there. So here's the TISAX spreadsheet. Welcome to game overview of the ISA tab. Put in your company name. We talked about the maturity levels at the top, level 1, 2, 3. And oh, they got 5. The information security. Then it kind of walks through. People know I have checklists for days. Policies, control question: to what extent are information security policies available? It shows you the objective needs at least one information security policy. Must policies be prepared and released. Should information security policies based on strategic of the company. So then you can kind of mark it if it's additional, none, or where do you assess it at? So I was looking there. It's pretty. It kind of reminds me really of ISO and NIST CSF. To what extent is the security managed within the organization? To what extent are information security responsibilities organized? To what extent are information requirements taken into account in the projects? So you just kind of walk through and just kind of with your teams and your executives and kind of figure out where you at. Most people I know I do IRS work. We call it the MOP, the management objectives. These are real similar to those type of questions. Let's see. There's quite a few questions here, which is cool for your org. So it has 60 to what extent is the protection of personally identified data taken into account when implementing information security. So once again, they have each one of those tabs. They have a prototype, data protection. We were talking about these different objectives. The results, it'll calculate that for you and tell you where you at. So I think that once again is kind of cool from that perspective. And I have a ton of these for IRS work and FISMA work. So once again, this is their kind of checklist. And a lot of times, especially for small companies, for them not to overthink it, for them to get started, I like to give people a ton of checklists so you don't have to think about what's going on. I think it works kind of for the same thing as DoD. I think for their systems, they're making sure nobody's tracking it, nobody's messing with the components, kind of like PCs. People not making sure the BIOS and stuff getting messed with. So a lot of cars have a lot of electrical components. So I think they're just trying to keep track of that to make sure people don't get inside their systems. Make their cars defective or putting malware inside their because a lot of cars, especially the cars, Teslas and those type of cars, even Chryslers, a lot of them have those self-driving cars, so you want to make sure malware is not getting in them. So I think they're just kind of going through what you would do for ISO and even NIST. Do you have policies and procedures? I'm sure you got some custom development. How are you rolling out patches? How are you updating your software? So I think all that kind of runs the same, Ty. Let's see what my man here said. Vince, that prototype protection time because it looks unique. Looks like a lot of yeah, I think you're right for that compared to regular for software because, like you said, you're moving parts and creating parts. So, what's up, Rex? Glad you could make it. So, no, I think you're correct on that. Once again, that was a little different. So, I got some questions on it. So, I wanted to dig in. I wasn't familiar with cybersecurity in the automotive industry, and I didn't know they had specifically their own type of automotive. Here, let me make that a little bigger. Let's go over, I guess, a few more tabs. See, prototype. I think he was right. What extent is security described a minimum of prototype protection necessary for measure prototype must be applied to? Yeah, I mean, like you said, to what extent is perimeter security existing to prevent unauthorized access? You know, we have that in NIST, but I think you're right. It's a little more prevalent. To what extent is the outer skin of the protected building constructed such as to prevent removal or opening of outer skin components using standard tools? Yeah, I've never seen nothing like that. So yeah, that's definitely a little different. Let me pump that up. Yeah, right there. Yeah, that was the outer skin of the building. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen talked about the outer skin of a building. So I think you were right on that. Shout out to NC Worker. So yeah, once again, it's for cybersecurity checks for auto workers, automotive. Once again, some I haven't seen in a while. Yeah, outer skin of the building. I don't think I've ever did a security check on that. So that was definitely different. So once again, I think it was a decent, comprehensive spreadsheet. I'll definitely put it in my stack of spreadsheets. Like I said, I like to spreadsheet people to death. Security is way more than spreadsheets, but to get people started, I think AWS is getting cheap. Yeah, let's see what my man put. Whoa. Yeah, that's true. I need to figure out. Yeah, it was weird. I need to dig into that a little bit, Chris. Like I said, they don't talk about AWS Gov being in there. AWS Gov is FedRAMP, and that's definitely wasn't part of the FedRAMP. So I know that part was not in there. Mhm. So, man. So now that you mention that on that last sheet, see, they don't even talk about US Gov, which of course they're European in there. So we know US Gov is definitely FedRAMP, and that's not listed in the TISAX certification. So I know I guess since it's a European thing, but yeah, you think US Gov will be listed? That's definitely kind of jumping out at me now that you mentioned that, Chris. So yeah, the US Gov is not listed in there, and we know that's definitely a FedRAMP data center on that. So let's think out one thing I had things. So drop a few more questions. Like I said, it was something short. Somebody asked me some questions on it, and I wasn't very familiar with that. There's very few compliances, especially what I think are major compliance that I've never heard of. Once again, adding it to my compliance playlist, trying to get that thing up over 100 hours. So that's one of my goals in 2025. Get my compliance playlist. So if you're looking for something, it'll probably be in my playlist. I need to upgrade because I got the CMC. I don't have the new version of that. I think 171's got a new version, so I need to update that. I don't have the new HIPAA version out there. PCI, which I just kind of dabble in it. Shout out to my man Jaime. I might do a joint presentation with my man Jaime. He's all over the PCI. Maybe I can get B Dubs to help me do a PCI. We do a joint stream, study GRC and PBO going over the PCI stuff. I appreciate everybody for joining me. I don't know. I'm trying to give up pop. I think that's why I'm tired. I haven't had any caffeine today. I was gonna get some, but I was like, I gotta try to stop drinking pop. It's not good for PBO's A1C. Like the commercial. Gotta watch my A1C, so I'm trying to cut out pop. PBO's grumpy in the third person. Once again, drop any questions, tech or cybersecurity. We can go over them, talk about anything. Um, yeah, somebody sent me a question, and we had a good conversation. They asked me, what would I do if your team was putting too much work on you, trying to give you too much responsibility. So I just told them is take the responsibility because jobs are hard to find, but um, do the work, go over the work, and just tell them you need 15 minutes and just go over what your assessment is, and you just let them make that decision for your assessment. So if you kind of concerned about taking on that go or no go or doing assessment, so just do it and just with your boss or team, just tell people you need 15 minutes, just go through your work because usually you have a little things you trying to figure out, things you need to decide. You put that in the senior people's hands, right? If you're a junior person, so just giving people different ways to handle things at work. PBO's old and grumpy. He just go do his thing. I feel you, Jeffrey Johnson. Yeah, I'm struggling today for some reason. I kind of went for a walk this morning, so I think I'm still tired from that. I'm trying to exercise a little more in 2025. I'm getting a little better shape. But I said that in 2024. So we're going to have to see how that's going to work. Once again, check out my man, Chris Whitlock, and study GRC. It's going, my man going live. Well, they were going live every day, cutting it down to 3 days, but definitely check them out. I'm usually on their channel bugging them. Shit, I got my man Ty doing great things. So once again, I appreciate everybody joining. My man Shango in the house. Once again, I appreciate everybody for joining me. Once again, if you need me, reach out to a lot of people. Reach out to me on Discord. You can check out the Study GRC Discord. I don't have my own Discord channel. I'm usually hanging out with them. Once again, bothering them. I'm trying to get back on this class and get it finished. I kind of took a little break, so got to get on that. So that's gonna be my number one goal. Once again, I got a compliance playlist. I appreciate it, Vince. I gotta get my man like Chris, get my hotkeys together, so I can bang and come out with the PBO compliance list. So yeah, I think I'll look that up real quick. Once again, keep grinding. I mean, it's hard out here. Don't give up. I think the market's gonna open up a little bit. I think it's kind of opening up. So okay, I need to do that. So once again, put any questions, tech or cybersecurity in there. I was just gonna drop my compliance playlist and shut it on down. Like I said, something short today. I appreciate everybody for joining me. So I gotta get my energy up. So again, I'm gonna try find my playlist. So here's my playlist. I don't even know how many videos I got in there. I have, what am I in? Guess I could have shared it. I have 65 videos of compliance. Compliance. I've been putting in work. So Once again, usually any compliance you're looking for, I have that in there. I appreciate you, Vince. So once again, I appreciate everybody joining me. I was gonna do something short tonight. That's my playlist. Just go check it out. Once again, I have 65 videos, different compliances, everything from GDPR, New York DFS, got some privacy in there, got a ton of NIST in there. So everybody know I'm a NIST 800-53. I'm thinking about branching off in the ISO. I see a lot of companies are multi countries, global companies are definitely doing NIST and ISO together. So I think that's something I'm gonna focus on. Probably end of 2025. Shout out to B Dubs. And Chris. I gotta get start studying for my CISSP. I think a lot of senior jobs are actually asking for it, especially remote jobs. I think that's one of the cutoff things is for that CISSP. Right. I have the Security Plus, even though I think mine has expired. So I need to get that CISP or go renew my Security Plus. So I'm gonna get that CISSP. Shout out to my man. I might try to get the PED and go get the CISSA. I don't know. That might be too much. But once again, I want to appreciate everybody for joining me. You can find me out on these YouTube streets. I'm out. PBO's going to bed. Everybody have a great hump day tomorrow. We gonna make it happen.